We are live. Let's check this out. We are. Let's quickly post that we are live and then we can get started.
Dale, sí.
All right. There we are. Okay, let's get started. Are you ready, Borja?
Ready to rumble.
Fantastic. Then, yeah, to everyone who's joining us, first of all, welcome. We're here for a second episode of 21 On, right, hosted by Treasury. And yeah, essentially the format is that we have a 21-minute, fully in the style of Bitcoin, a 21-minute podcast with a limited supply of minutes, where we really try to drill down to the center of a topic. I mean, previously in episode 1, we debated ETPs, right, versus Bitcoin treasury companies. Which one is the cleaner way to get exposure to Bitcoin with Duncan, president of 21 Shares. And today we're going to ask, what is the rail that Bitcoin capital markets are going to grow on, right? Like, is it going to be fiat rails on the one hand, which is obviously the bet that we're making at Treasury, or is it going to be on Bitcoin native rails? Is that really the next step for Bitcoin, which of course Borja from Roxom represents. Maybe just a brief introduction. Treasury is a European Bitcoin treasury company aiming to list on Euronext Amsterdam, and thereby hopefully being the first to be listed as a Bitcoin treasury company on a main exchange in the Eurozone. So we believe that's really something that European capital markets lack, that kind of clean exposure to Bitcoin and to BTC. And yeah, but maybe we should define terms very quickly before diving in. Of course, on the one hand, you've got kind of a fiat rail BTC exposure, right? Like, be it ETFs, be it ETPs, or Bitcoin treasury companies, right, which introduce that kind of structured finance element to create stronger Bitcoin exposure in that way. But those are all denominated in USD and euro, or yen for in Metaplanet's case, settled through traditional clearing, right, governed by existing regulation. And then on the other hand, what Borja is building is Bitcoin native capital markets, right, where there is no fiat currency involved, no dollars, no euros, no Argentine pesos, just everything priced and cleared in BTC. So maybe Borja, just maybe a brief introduction from your side. I mean, first of all, you very extraordinary guest, right? Coming from Argentina, dialing in from Argentina right now. Co-founded Lemon Cash over there with about 3 million users to escape the peso inflation and essentially allow for people to transact in dollars on stablecoin rails. Recently raised almost 18 million, right? Mainly by Tim Draper, one of the largest Bitcoin holders in the world, amongst other investors. And but yeah, maybe you want to give a short explanation of what Roxom is, what the vision behind it is, and why Bitcoin native capital markets.
Yeah, thank you, Taiko. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here and to debate a little bit. I've been in Bitcoin for 15 years now. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. I was 14 years old at the time I came across Bitcoin through one of my best friends. As you said previously, founded Lemon, one of the largest and strongest Bitcoin and crypto companies here in Latin America. I would say that that phase of my life was working on Bitcoin accessibility and now I'm working on unleashing the Bitcoin economy through Roxxon. What is Roxxon and what's our vision? Well, going as fast as possible. The first great stock market was the Amsterdam Exchange on the Guilder. Then you had London Stock Exchange on the pound, and then you had Wall Street on the dollars. Today, it's obvious that Wall Street is not going to continue to be the the financial powerhouse of the world. Many people in the financial industry wonder themselves and ask themselves, what's the next capital market hub going to be? Is it going to be Shanghai? Is it going to be Hong Kong? Is it going to be Seoul? Is it going to be the Euronext? Is it going to be London again? Who is it going to be? History tells you that if you want to guess the answer to that question, you should try to guess what the next power currency of the world is going to be. And our answer is very clear. We believe that the next power currency of the world is going to be Bitcoin. And ergo, we believe that it's Bitcoin capital markets, the next markets that will be the financial powerhouse of the world. So that is what we're doing. We're building an exchange where you can trade stocks, bonds, commodities, ETFs, get dividends. Basically, everything is priced and settled in Bitcoin, and everything works through Bitcoin in the same way that in the London Stock Exchange, the currency is the pound, or in Wall Street, the currency is the dollar, and in Roxxon, the currency is Bitcoin. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And maybe for those who are not familiar with Roxxon, right? I mean, I have an account. I was one of the happy early few to be able to try the platform. But what can you exactly do there, right, for users?
Yeah, so today we have 4 futures that don't exist anywhere else in the world, which is Gold Bitcoin, SP500 Bitcoin, Dollar Bitcoin, which is different than Bitcoin Dollar, and Oil BTC, Oil Bitcoin. Essentially, it's Bitcoin settled and denominated contracts against all of these assets. So you can actually trade the SP500's volatility in Bitcoin terms. Then we have all the spot markets. We support roughly 50 equities today, and we're adding new equities every single week. Our most grand recent listing has been Stretch, where we've had people from all over the world, continents, signing up onto Roxxon, depositing capital, and acquiring Stretch. We pay the dividends in Bitcoin. We are currently working on Roxxon Carry, which is essentially a carry trade product where you can borrow at cheap rates against your Bitcoin and use those dollars to buy Stretch and get an effective Bitcoin yield. We're working on the concept of Bitcoin income, so essentially how to build a portfolio of assets that yield you Bitcoin every single month. And now we're going to be working on listing SATA, so you can get a Bitcoin paycheck every 15 days, basically get Bitcoin dividends every 2 weeks on a bi-weekly basis. We're launching, again, Bitcoin-backed loans that will power the carry trade. So we're launching plenty of stuff. There's plenty of things that you guys can do. But most importantly, you guys can have everything related wealth, call it crypto, stocks, Bitcoin, everything. You can have your entire portfolio in Roxxon, put it at work, and always track how the performance is going in Bitcoin terms, and then again, with the benefits of dividends having in Bitcoin and so on, and plenty of other things that we didn't launch yet, but are going to be a key part of Bitcoin capital markets and on which we will debate now.
No, that's great. That's a really great summary. And like one of the things that I often think about, right, is kind of like, where is the next 100 billion going to come from, right? The next 100 billion that's going to flow into BTC, right? I mean, today, $1.5 trillion asset, right? Where is the sort of next, adoption curve going to come from? Now, obviously, Bitcoin treasury companies mainly make the bet, this is going to come from, fixed income, right? Pension allocators, family offices that need that equity rail, right? Essentially to get exposure to these kind of assets, right? In similar ways, how say real estate investment trusts, opened real estate exposure to equity investors, in similar ways, Bitcoin treasury companies, open levered managed Bitcoin exposure, right, to investors. And they're essentially like the fiat rail is the product, right? Like if you look at Saylor's example, right, the product is that it's priced in dollars, it runs on on the US system, right? It's fully embedded in the banking system, and so on, right? And that's where like the big capital sits. That's where really the big capital can be unlocked, right? Same in Europe, right? Huge pools of capital. Like what would your answer be to that? Like, why is the next 100 billion going to come from somewhere else, right? Going to come from say native Bitcoin circles?
Yeah, we're talking this before. Essentially, Tycho, the way that we see this in Roxom is that this is a thing about what is the most pragmatic way to get the biggest amount of capital. And today, the truth is that the most pragmatic way to get a bunch of capital is from the US market, from the European market, from the London market, because that's where you already have hundreds of trillions of dollars of liquidity and investments and just entire financial industries. What is very beautiful, though, that supports Bitcoin markets, and Bitcoin markets will be like the best thing that can happen for Bitcoin is and Bitcoin markets in general is for the Bitcoin markets and Bitcoin to sweep liquidity to traditional markets and to bring that liquidity onto Bitcoin. In the same way that in Argentina, the dollar swept peso liquidity, and there's a big transfer of liquidity from all the peso markets onto the dollar markets. In Argentina, we envision the same thing happening in Bitcoin. And the great thing is that it's exactly these kind of components what make the Bitcoin markets to have more sense each day. And I'll give two examples. Number one is the example of the selling point of Bitcoin treasury companies. The whole selling point of Bitcoin treasury companies is that they will outperform Bitcoin, okay? Which means that if Bitcoin is your unit of account, basically what treasury companies are saying is we are a good Bitcoin investment, because if you invest 1 Bitcoin into my stock, by the end of this year, your portfolio, your stocks will be worth more than 1 Bitcoin. So essentially, Bitcoin treasury companies are selling a Bitcoin trade, a Bitcoin denominated trade, which is great news, because if you're sweeping liquidity from traditional markets, then it means that people in the traditional markets are doing a Bitcoin denominated trade even without knowing it, okay? Which is the first big thing, because then it's as they see this thing happening and unfolding, then it will make more and more sense for them to transition into the whole thing of Bitcoin capital markets. The second part is instruments like Stretch. The fact that we now have instruments like Stretch that work on fixed income for traditional markets are essentially enabling, for the first time in history, in Bitcoin's history, the creation of transparent fixed income Bitcoin products. And that is, for example, exactly what we're doing in Roxom with Roxom Carry, which again is borrow dollars at cheap rates, and then with those dollars, buy Stretch, instruments like Stretch, and keep the net difference for yourself, which is essentially a net Bitcoin yield. So this is very complementary. So basically, with all the Bitcoin treasury companies playing in traditional markets, they're essentially enabling, unlocking a fixed income opportunity for the whole Bitcoin industry, which is completely synergistic, because essentially what happens is, let's go to the extreme, let's say that Roxom is incredibly successful and Bitcoiners from all around the world start doing the carry trade. This means that we will be creating a huge demand for Stretch, which means that Stretch will perform even better, which means that they will raise more capital to issue more Stretch, to buy more Bitcoin, and then this is just a virtuous cycle. So this is a case in which, for example, the Bitcoin markets could be essentially really, really, really helpful to sweep liquidity from traditional markets. Right? It's like this synergy of Bitcoin and
so if I can summarize so essentially what we're saying is, like, you know, we the Bitcoin treasury companies, right? We are saying, okay, look, we are, we are going into the markets to essentially, unlock all that, idle capital that's doesn't have the access to the great returns that BTC offers, and are going to unlock that, for Bitcoin, but also for the financial system. And then you in turn are saying, well, if Bitcoin treasury companies do that, then you're essentially going to create a BTC denominated market for companies like by extension. Is that right?
Indeed. And essentially, you're going to be able to allow the entire Bitcoin industry to actually, like in this case with Stretch, which is the best example I can have, is Stretch, again, is enabling and unlocking an entire fixed income industry and category within Bitcoin. Because now the entire Bitcoin industry can execute a carry trade powered by Stretch, which again is completely synergistic. And today, fixed income in Bitcoin does not exist. All you have is like black box yield products and so on. And this is a capital market play. This is a pure cash and carry trade. And yes, Bitcoin treasury companies are unlocking that for us within the Bitcoin space.
Yeah, and I mean that's a fascinating view, right? One of the things that's obviously necessary for that to happen, right, and that to really materialize, like that being like Bitcoin denominated capital markets, liquidity is of course like very important, right? I mean, I didn't recently check on Roxxon, but I would assume that, you know, say BTC Oil or BTC S&P 500, they're not like the most liquid pairs, perhaps yet today, but liquidity is obviously the lifeblood of capital markets, right? That's why, you know, at Treasury we are going after the Eurozone market, right? Like the second most liquid capital market in the world after the dollar markets. So how do these Bitcoin denominated markets, in your view, actually become liquid, which is kind of a condition for you being right, in them unlocking this next 100 billion in capital?
Well, this is the best part, because this is what's going to happen. This is the way we see it. Liquidity will essentially come, most of it will essentially come once we enable, or any company doing something similar to Roxxon, which does not exist yet, but I'm sure that they will come out, the spot margin markets. And why is that? Because you will go public on the Euronext, and you will have shareholders. And those shareholders, many of which will be Bitcoiners, will have their stocks within their brokers, and their brokers will offer your shareholders what we call in the finance industry subscription to stock lending programs. And in those, when you have shares in stock lending programs, essentially the market is paying you a yield to borrow your shares so that they can do different trades, like for example, short selling. And what will happen to your shareholders is that their stock lending programs will be yielding them euros, because the market will be borrowing your shares, which are in a euro exchange, and they will be paying euro interest rates for those shares. And this is where it becomes very interesting. On Roxxon, or in the Bitcoin markets, regardless of it's Roxxon or whatever, shareholders of Treasury will have their stocks on a Bitcoin market. And when the market borrows those shares, they will be paying a Bitcoin interest on those shares because they are doing Bitcoin trades. So what happens is that if you ask any Bitcoiner, hey, where do you prefer to have your shares? Do you prefer to have your shares in a broker where the stock lending program yields you euros? Or do you want to have your shares in a broker where your shares yield you Bitcoin? Of course, the answer is, I want Bitcoin. So what happens in Bitcoin markets is that it unlocks the opportunity for any investor or shareholder of any company. This is not about Treasury. Picture somebody holding Apple, for them to get Bitcoin income on their portfolio instead of getting dollar income, euro income, and so on. And the same thing applies, and I'll give you another example, which is even better. Imagine this. I'll give you two examples. Number one, you have Stretch, right? Stretch is an instrument that in Bitcoin terms, because Stretch has a par to $100, in Bitcoin terms, you would really want to short it because you have something that is always worth $100, and as Bitcoin goes up, you would want to short that instrument, right? At the same time, you have people who are buying Stretch, and let's say in Roxxon, you will have plenty of people who are buying Stretch through the carry trade. So you have people who have exposure to Stretch, and you have plenty of traders who want to short Stretch in Bitcoin because since it has a par, when Bitcoin goes up, Stretch in Bitcoin goes down. Priced in Bitcoin, it's going down. So here you have a beautiful synergy where essentially Stretch holders are getting not only the dividends they have, but also they are getting passive income. They are getting income because they are borrowing their Stretch shares to a market that is shorting Stretch, because in Bitcoin terms, it's basically free money. You're giving me something that is always at the same price, and Bitcoin moves. So, and in the long run, Bitcoin is going up. So in the long run, Stretch will, in Bitcoin terms, will always go down. So you have the Stretch holders who are making money based off on lending their shares, and you have the borrowers of the shares who are shorting Stretch, who in the long run are also making money, because it's not hard to see why Stretch in Bitcoin will go down. So this is a beautiful synergy where you will have plenty of Bitcoiners who will be doing a carry trade. They will be buying Stretch, which is giving them a net Bitcoin yield, plus they are lending their shares to the market. The market is shorting those shares, and the holders of those shares are just making this yield, passive yield on their assets. Mm-hmm. So this is a beautiful example of how this compounds. And sorry, just I go very quick. And the other example is Apple shares. Apple is a stock that in dollar terms, it gives you, if you subscribe your Apple shares to any stock lending program, Apple yields almost zero, because nobody shorts Apple, because in dollar terms, Apple is usually up and to the right. So the market is not interested in shorting Apple. If you look at Apple in Bitcoin terms, Apple is not a very good stock. Apple is a stock that is continuously and in the long run going down in Bitcoin terms, because in dollars, Bitcoin is always outpacing Apple. So the clear example is Tim Cook. He has plenty of Apple shares, and let's say that he has his Apple shares in Interactive Brokers. He's making no money, no income on his shares, because there is no stock lending program, effective stock lending program for that, because there is no demand for that. However, in the Bitcoin markets, Apple is an incredibly attractive stock to short, which means that for somebody like Tim Cook, it's going to be more efficient. Like in dollar markets, he's getting no income on his shares, but on the Bitcoin markets, because the Bitcoin markets would love to short Apple stock, he would be getting income, and the income would be in Bitcoin. So this is why we feel, and what we see, that will bring a bunch of liquidity onto the Bitcoin markets, again, regardless of Roxxon, which is the fact that just by having assets on the Bitcoin markets, all the income that comes from capital markets, margin markets, repos, stock lending programs, and so on, will be in Bitcoin, right? So, and who doesn't want to make Bitcoin? Like what I'm essentially telling you is your shareholders will be able to have a Bitcoin income just by holding their treasury shares on Roxxon, or their Apple shares, or their Stretch, or their MSTR shares on Roxxon, or in any Bitcoin market. Yeah. So this is what we think is going to happen.
No, it's just fascinating. We're trying to have a debate, but I think we're very much in agreement here. But maybe to sort of summarize where we went, right, as we are kind of coming up on time, is so Bitcoin treasury companies are running at unlocking all this capital that's sitting in financial system that can basically only access equities and bonds, right? In doing so, they are, if they're managed well, right, they're outperforming Bitcoin, as we're seeing in Strategy's case. As these companies outperform Bitcoin, right, they are very attractive to hold for Bitcoin native investors, for Bitcoiners. And as that happens, they're more attractive to hold in an exchange like Roxxon, and then through stock lending, will bootstrap these Bitcoin native rails that you are talking about. So maybe at the beginning we started with this framing of that, okay, is the next 100 billion going to come from traditional finance, or is it going to come from Bitcoin native investors? And it seems that the answer is actually both, right? Yeah. It's like, if the Bitcoin treasury companies are continuing on their current path of success in unlocking fiat capital, they are kind of, you're saying, we, the Bitcoin treasury companies, are the bootloader for your vision.
Indeed, 100%. Like the best thing that is happening right now for the Bitcoin markets is Strategy, Saylor, you guys, like the whole Bitcoin treasury company space, the whole preferred space. This is the best thing for Bitcoin markets.
Yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful summary, and I think something that that for a lot of people will be a completely new paradigm, a new thing to hear. So yeah, maybe to close off, like where can people find you? Where can people continue following this vision? If they want to know more after seeing this.
Yeah, you guys can follow us on X at Roxom or at Borja Martel S, and yeah, we're just here every day, 24/7. Like, just reach out. You can check out Roxom.com, and hopefully soon you'll be able. Once you guys list and once we're ready, you'll soon be able to hold treasury on Roxom as well.
Awesome. That's amazing. And then I guess some final notes. So this was another episode of 21 on. We'll be back with this format in 2 weeks from now. Next week, Treasury CEO King Uy will be hosting his Treasury forum to go deep on similar topics with another guest. So stay tuned. Make sure to follow at Treasury BTC on X to keep in touch on all updates coming from there, be it European capital markets and of course Treasury's progress. And yeah, Borja, it was great to have you on. Really great to explore this vision together. And yeah, looking forward to stay in touch. And together we'll not only orange pill Europe, but we'll orange pill
the world,
the full capital markets, the full world. So I guess we got to get back to work.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Taiko. Pleasure to be here, and see you soon. See you around.